The White House Rose Garden, on January 15, 2026, at exactly 1100 a.m., is sharp and sunny with temperatures hovering near 38 degrees. It is the ideal weather for the events about to unfold, featuring clear skies and brisk air, that characterizes a January day in Washington where everything feels distinct and genuine. There are no clouds or haze, just pure clarity, as President Donald Trump takes his place at the podium with the presidential seal shining gold in the winter light. He wears a perfectly fitted blue Brioni suit, and likely a red power tie that screams authority to everyone watching. The American flag pin on his lapel is slightly crooked, but he is too focused on the prospect of winning to care about such minor details. He wears that confident smile, the one suggesting he possesses secret knowledge, which has intimidated his rivals for 50 years in both business and politics. Behind him stands the West Wing with its white columns and classical architecture, representing American power and the ultimate authority of the presidency. Cameras are positioned everywhere, dozens more than usual, with every major network, including CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, having sent their full teams. Even Al Jazeera, the BBC, Reuters, and Agence France-Presse are present because they know this is a worldwide breaking news event. All the White House correspondents received the alert 90 minutes ago via a short message on official letterhead, announcing a major press conference at 11 o'clock a.m. regarding Operation Clean Plate. The final line, noting Representative Ilhan Omar's attendance as the Minnesota representative, caught everyone's attention, signaling that something massive is happening since she is there voluntarily. Representative Ilhan Omar stands stage left, about 15 feet from the podium, close enough to be filmed and close enough to hear every word of her potential humiliation. She is a Democrat from Minnesota's 5th District, a squad member, and a progressive icon who was the first Somali American elected to Congress and the first Muslim woman to wear a hijab in the House. Today, she wears a navy blue hijab and a professional dark pantsuit while trying to look confident and strong, though her hands are clasped too tightly with white knuckles. She was invited under the guise of a bipartisan show of concern regarding federal fraud, believing she would simply stand beside Trump and give a statement defending her community. She plans to push back against Trump's attacks on Somali immigrants, call for due process, and get some good clips for social media that CNN will love and MSNBC will praise as brave. She imagines the squad rallying around her and AOC tweeting support for the perfect optics, but she has absolutely no concept of what is actually about to occur. The press corps is seated in neat rows with over 80 reporters, including the big names from national newspapers and major networks filling the front 3 seats. Notepads are out alongside digital recorders and smartphones, while the red lights on the cameras glow to indicate this is being broadcast live to the world. Every network is carrying the feed on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, meaning millions are watching now, and tens of millions will tune in within the hour. Trump steps to the microphone and adjusts it downwards since he is tall, and the equipment is always set too high, using that familiar gesture and showman's pause he has perfected. He knows how to work a camera to build suspense, letting the anticipation and tension grow as the audience wonders what he will say. He thanks everyone for being there, his voice carrying strong and clear with that unmistakable New York accent. He comments on the beautiful but cold day, noting that he loves days like this, where the air is clear and you can see for miles. He states that today is about clarity, truth, and facts, while making eye contact with individual reporters whose names and biases he knows by heart. He nods with a slight smile at the Fox News team, who smile back, then looks at CNN until their smiles disappear and they look down, unable to meet his gaze. He announces Operation Clean Plate, a massive multi-agency federal investigation involving the FBI, IRS, Treasury, and Justice Department working together. It is described as the biggest investigation in American history into welfare, child nutrition, and pandemic fraud that has been happening in Minnesota for years. $1 billion has been stolen, perhaps even more according to his investigators, who suggest the figure could reach $2 billion. This money was stolen from American children, hungry kids, taxpayers, and every hard-working American family who pays their taxes honestly. He pauses to let the number sink in, emphasizing that it is $1 billion with a B, which equals $1,000 million. The cameras zoom in on his serious presidential face, showing that this is not a rally, but a solemn address from the commander-in-chief. He gestures with his left hand to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who manages a forced and uncomfortable smile as the cameras pan to her in high definition. She represents the district where most of this fraud occurred, where criminals set up fake sites and shell companies to claim they fed non-existent children. Hundreds of millions of dollars disappeared while children went hungry and criminals bought mansions, luxury cars, and jewelry, and traveled to Dubai on taxpayer money. Trump's voice hardens as he notes she sponsored the Meals Act of 2020, the legislation that enabled this fraud by weakening oversight and removing safeguards. Omar's smile falters for a second, a micro-expression caught by every camera angle, while her lawyer standing just out of frame tenses up. This was not the plan discussed with the White House Chief of Staff 3 days ago, which was supposed to be a standard announcement with prepared statements. This is not normal protocol or standard procedure, but something else entirely that catches them completely off guard. Trump continues in a casual voice, stating that before the official announcement and prepared statements, he needs to ask the Congresswoman some questions. He insists on asking presidential questions that the American people deserve answers to, questions that have been ignored because the media is too busy protecting her. He looks directly at the CNN correspondent to call out their bias and refusal to ask hard questions, doing so on live television in front of millions. Omar's smile is gone, her face neutral as she tries to hide her fear, though her knuckles are white from clasping her hands so tightly. Her lawyer behind her shakes his head slightly to signal she should not engage, but she is already trapped in the rose garden on camera. Trump thanks her warmly for coming, noting she could have stayed on Capitol Hill or sent an aide, but calls her very brave for showing up. He proposes a real conversation about her Meals Act, the fraud it enabled, the convicted criminal from her campaign, and her mysterious millions. Trump reaches under the podium and pulls out a very thick folder organized with 6 colored tabs representing 6 different scandals. It is the kind of organized evidence folder trial lawyers use to destroy a witness on cross-examination, the kind that signals someone is in serious trouble. The CNN producer whispers urgently that they cannot cut away because he is the president, while Fox News zooms in on the folder knowing this is television gold. Trump taps the folder to ensure there is no confusion later, stating clearly that he is the president and she is a guest at the people's house. He explains that he will ask important questions which she must answer truthfully under the eyes of the American people, and afterwards she can make her statement. He asks if this sounds fair, and answers his own question by declaring he is an extremely fair person, contrary to what people say. Omar opens her mouth to establish ground rules, but Trump holds up his hand with firm presidential authority to stop her. He explains that protocol dictates the president asks questions first, which is the simple and democratic American way. He warns her to listen carefully because his first question is the foundation of everything they will discuss today. He asks if she knew when she sponsored the Meals Act of 2020 that it would enable the largest welfare and child nutrition fraud in American history, demanding a simple yes or no. The Rose Garden erupts with gasps and shock as the president interrogates a sitting member of Congress on live television during a press conference. The CNN correspondent audibly gasps, while the Fox News team barely contains their excitement, and MSNBC looks stricken as their icon is publicly executed. The entire world is watching this ambush, but no one can intervene, because it is his house, and he is asking legitimate questions about documented fraud. Omar's jaw clenches with visible tension as she tries to control the anger and panic fighting for dominance within her. Her voice is tight but controlled as she argues that the fraud was committed by bad actors exploiting a program designed with good intentions. Trump stops her firmly, using the voice of a man who has commanded billions and fired thousands, telling her that is a deflection and not an answer. He reiterates that he did not ask about criminals or intentions, but rather asks again if she knew her bill would be used to steal. He speaks slowly to make it clear, asking if she knew at the time of sponsorship that criminals would steal $1 billion. Omar tries again to say she cannot be held responsible for criminals, but Trump cuts her off decisively to interpret her answer as a no. He concludes that if she didn't know, it implies incompetence, meaning she wrote a bill so lacking in safeguards that it enabled massive theft. The alternative is that it is a lie, meaning she knew exactly what would happen and let it occur because it benefited her constituents or herself. He states that his investigators from the FBI, IRS, and Treasury are looking into which option it is, and they will find the truth. Trump opens the folder to the first blue tab containing reports and charts, then reads a question about her campaign official named Gwad Hashi. He notes that Gwad worked on multiple campaigns and attended events with her where they took many friendly photos together, asking if she remembers him. Omar gives an almost imperceptible nod, which the cameras catch, and Trump confirms that Gwad has been convicted in federal court after pleading guilty to fraud. He explains that Gwad confessed to stealing $3.2 million by claiming to feed 5,000 non-existent children a day and spending the taxpayer money on luxury goods. Trump points out that Gwad is currently in federal prison where criminals belong, then looks directly at Omar with a piercing stare. He asks the most important question yet, demanding to know if she was aware that her campaign official and friend was stealing from children. The cameras zoom in tight on Omar's face as the color drains from her complexion, shifting from healthy brown to an ash gray of fear. The realization sets in that this is about her own corruption and crimes, and that Trump possesses every piece of evidence and documentation needed to destroy her career. Her voice shakes as she suggests following proper procedure, but Trump interrupts cheerfully, agreeing that is exactly why he cleared his schedule. He states that millions of Americans, and potentially 100 million worldwide, are watching what is likely the highest-rated press conference in history. He demands she answer the question of whether she knew the man in her photos was stealing millions from American children. Silence fills the Rose Garden for 20 seconds, broken only by the clicking of cameras and the rustle of uncomfortable reporters. The press corps finds the moment brutal and awkward, yet no one can look away from the spectacle of her silence, which is as damaging as an answer. She says nothing, because admitting she knew implies complicity, while denying it implies she is incompetent for not vetting her own staff. Trump breaks the silence casually, saying they will revisit that point later, but emphasizing that his team has been working around the clock. He mentions he has the best forensic accountants and federal prosecutors who have found shocking things about her money and her husband's wealth. Trump spreads the folder open to reveal dozens of pages, amplifying the sound of rustling paper in the silence. He outlines the plan to go through 6 major scandals systematically, pointing to the 6 color-coded tabs that represent documented federal crimes ready for prosecution. Behind the press corps, the MSNBC producer panics on the phone, unable to comprehend a situation that has no historical comparison. Trump continues, stating that after all the evidence and testimony is presented, the American people can decide if she is a victim or a fraud. He frames the choice as whether she is a target of racism or a traitor who enriches herself while her constituents remain poor. Omar looks desperately at her lawyer, who shakes his head frantically, signaling there is nothing he can do to stop this disaster. She cannot walk away or claim privilege, but must stand there and endure the consequences of her catastrophic mistake in coming to the Rose Garden. Trump shifts his tone from showman to prosecutor, stating that he has built his life on numbers and knows that while politicians lie, numbers do not. He asserts that you cannot spin or deflect with numbers because they represent the absolute truth. CNN's correspondent whispers urgently into her phone that they need legal teams standing by, but her producer replies that it is legal because she is there voluntarily. Fox News zooms in on the split-screen contrast between Trump and Omar, creating television gold that will be remembered for decades. Trump holds up a document with the Department of Justice seal, reading slowly to note the Meals Act was introduced in April 2020 with Omar as the primary sponsor. He acknowledges the stated noble purpose of feeding children during the pandemic, asking who could possibly oppose such a goal. However, he pivots to explain that the bill actually weakened oversight and removed verification requirements, making it easy to claim federal money without proof. The bill effectively told people that the government would trust them with taxpayer money without questions, creating a massive fraud opportunity. Trump displays a chart with red bars showing the shocking numbers regarding Feeding Our Future, the main nonprofit in her district. They claim to feed hundreds of thousands of children daily, and the government sent them huge sums of money using the flexibility her bill created. Trump notes that $250 million has been proven stolen so far, though prosecutors believe the total could reach $1 billion because the oversight was so poor. He explains with controlled anger that there were no meals and no children, just empty buildings, ghost kitchens, and parking lots. Millions of dollars flowed from Washington to criminals in Minneapolis who bought luxury items, while a reporter from Reuters tries unsuccessfully to ask a question. Trump waves her off and holds up high-quality photos of the Safari restaurant in Minneapolis, which looks legitimate but was a front. The co-owner was convicted of conspiracy and money laundering involving $70 million flowing through this single restaurant. Trump reveals a video still of Omar at that very restaurant in the summer of 2020, smiling and wearing an apron while handing out food. He describes her praising the program and the work being done, asking America to picture her promoting a site that was stealing from children. His voice drops to a dangerous quiet as he asks if she knew the restaurant was part of a fraud scheme when she was there. Omar answers with a shaking voice that she attended many community events, but Trump interrupts to say that is a deflection. He forces the binary choice again, stating that she is either lying to cover it up or was too incompetent to spot a $70 million fraud operation. Trump flips to another page to discuss her campaign official, Gwad Hashi, showing a large photo of the two of them smiling together. He details that Gwad was her ground game coordinator and essential to her operation, organizing voter registration and outreach for her campaigns. While working for her, Gwad ran a fake food site called Advanced Youth Athletic Development, claiming to feed 5,000 children a day. Trump raises his eyebrows at the sheer scale of claiming 5,000 daily meals, noting that such an operation would require a massive industrial kitchen. None of it existed except the paperwork and the $3.2 million Gwad stole from the government while working on her campaign. The silence in the press corps is heavy as Trump reveals Guad pleaded guilty and is now serving a sentence in federal prison. Trump slams the section of documents shut and asks again how she could not know her own campaign official was a criminal. Omar's lawyer steps forward to intervene, but Trump warns him to back off until she answers, asserting this is a conversation between him and the Congresswoman. Omar visibly shakes as she claims she returned the donations when she learned of the charges, to which Trump replies that returning $7,400 is a start. He points out the math that she returned only a tiny fraction of what he stole, and she kept his support for the vast majority of the time he was committing fraud. He emphasizes that she only returned the money after the indictment was public, and it was too embarrassing to keep, not when the theft was occurring. Trump summarizes the picture for America, listing her bad legislation, her presence at fraud sites, and her employment of criminals. He suggests she is either the unluckiest politician in history or she participated and profited, noting that 78 people from her district have been indicted. He closes the blue tab definitively, marking the end of the first scandal regarding the billion-dollar fraud, and notes they are just getting started. He introduces the second scandal regarding her mysterious millions and how she went from being broke to a multimillionaire in a short time. The MSNBC correspondent has her head in her hands while the Fox News team grins, knowing this story will dominate the news for weeks. Omar looks desperately at her lawyer, who shakes his head, indicating she has no choice but to endure the next phase. Trump asks her a simple yes or no question about whether she is a millionaire, noting her hesitation is fatal in the eyes of the viewers. He reminds her that she stated in a February 2025 Business Insider interview that she was a working mom with student debt and not a millionaire. Trump holds up her 2023 financial disclosure form, which lists her net worth as less than $250,000, consistent with a middle-class lifestyle. He then displays her 2024 disclosure form, where her net worth has remarkably jumped to between $6 and $30 million in just 1 year. He lets the numbers hang in the air, suggesting that such an increase on a congressional salary implies either fraud or magic. Reporters behind the scenes frantically verify the public records as Fox News displays the numbers on screen. Trump asks again if she is a millionaire, pointing out that either her interview statement or her legal disclosure must be a lie. Omar whispers that her husband's businesses are on the disclosure, but Trump pivots immediately to discuss those specific businesses. He details a winery in California that went from being worth less than $50,000 to millions in 1 year, a return rate that is impossible. He cites court filings from investors who claimed they were defrauded and lost everything, contrasting this with her claims of high value. He then moves to Rose Lake Capital, her husband's venture firm, revealing a lawsuit showing the company had only $42 in its bank account. Yet, on her congressional disclosure, this same company with $42 in the bank is listed as being worth up to $25 million. He asks her to explain how a company with $42 becomes worth $25 million, but she meets him with complete silence. Trump theorizes that she hid dirty money or foreign funds in her husband's businesses to make them look valuable on paper. Fox News displays a graphic comparing the bank account balance to the disclosure value, devastating her credibility. Trump adds the final piece of the puzzle, noting that her campaign paid her husband's companies millions before they married. He closes the red tab, summarizing that she went from broke to wealthy, while investors sued for fraud and court documents showed empty accounts. He moves quickly to the third scandal, involving her husband, Tim Minette, and the payments made while they were having an affair. Trump opens the yellow tab containing Federal Election Commission filings and describes Tim as a smooth-talking consultant. He reveals that her campaign paid Tim's firm, the E Street Group, nearly $3 million for one election cycle, which is far above the norm. He outlines the timeline, showing they were traveling together intimately in 2019, while his wife filed for divorce, citing Omar as the reason. Trump emphasizes that while this affair was happening and destroying a marriage, her campaign was funneling millions to his firm. He lists the monthly payments of hundreds of thousands of dollars, suggesting this was not for consulting, but rather hush money or a bribe for loyalty. He stares at her and asks if she paid him millions to keep him quiet about the affair, a question she cannot answer without incriminating herself. Trump notes that she cut ties with the firm after the scandal broke, only to marry Tim months later. He points out the suspicious convenience of his businesses becoming worth millions shortly after they married. He closes the yellow section, labeling it as money laundering and campaign finance fraud rather than love. Trump brings up Ahmed Elmi, whom she married in 2009, noting that records suggest he is her brother and that she committed tax fraud by filing jointly with another man. He mentions her refusal to take a DNA test to clear her name, implying the incestuous allegation is true. He transitions to her anti-Semitism, citing her visit to Columbia University, where she called Jewish students pro-genocide, and her opposition to Iron Dome funding. He asks if Israel has a right to exist, and her silence speaks volumes to the audience. Finally, he attacks her loyalty, citing a speech where she called Somalia her home and noting that the Treasury is investigating if fraud money went to terrorists. Hours after the press conference, the coverage is still dominating every network, and by sunset, Democratic leadership has effectively abandoned her. Within 24 hours, multiple federal investigations are announced involving the Justice Department, IRS, and the House Ethics Committee. In Minneapolis, a teacher named Sarah Chen laments that the stolen money was meant to feed students, while a local imam thanks Trump for separating the criminals from the Somali community. 2 weeks later, Omar releases a statement announcing she will not seek re-election, effectively ending her career in disgrace. Trump holds a follow-up press conference stating that justice has been served and the swamp is being drained one fraud at a time.